Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for Terracotta Army, which is Board and Dice's one of their newest games. Not actually by Daniel Turchi or David. What the hell are their names? the T people who make the T games.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is considered like one of their like in that T series, because I don't know if that has to be a T name by the designers.
Right.
But it easily could be. All right, let me get one glaring issue out of the way before we talk about the many positives of this game. I have one pretty big negative, and it's easily rectified. This is a horrible two-player game.
Yeah, horrible two-player game.
I wasn't sure if you were also getting that.
100%. I felt like this was a terrible two-player game.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, I think, just because every other game in the T series that I have played, Teotihuacan, Tekhenu, Tawantinsuyu, which you haven't played yet, all those are solid at 2.
Yep, 100%. Tolkien is solid at 2. Or Zolkin is solid at solid 2.
Yeah, I call it Tolkien.
No, I realized it when I maxed it out, so on round 4 and 5. It's like, because I'm guaranteed last, because you took first player every single time, it's like, all I have to do is keep up, and there's an odd number, so I can at least grab the last one, and I was keeping my clay at a certain level, like I never let it go below a level, because it's like, all I have to do is keep up with you, and I'm guaranteed to get the top 2 points then.
Yeah, like, I was in the lead for probably until round 4.
Yep.
But what I noticed, actually, it wasn't even those. I mean, but these are also point of contention because it's only one other person. Like, if there was literally anyone else also vying for those, then it's... So, the reason why I think this is horrible at 2 is for 2 reasons. One, it's only one person competing with you. So if you want to score these, which obviously who gives a fuck about the 5 and 7 pointers?
9 even is kind of questionable. It's 5-point difference.
Yeah, because then there's another game that does this weird thing where it's an incremental in difference of points, because that's 3. I think it actually goes up 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Wasn't that the Saturn Moon one?
Oh, the Titan, the shitty Titan one. Yeah. No, that one. I think it stayed the same amount of different points, so it's like you weren't incentivized to race for it because the points were the same. But yeah, the difference of points.
Oh yeah. I do remember, because we just talked about that game not that long ago.
Yeah, there was a game that we've played recently where it was kind of like, who really cares about these? But then, yes, now this is 5, that's 6, that's 7.
Right.
So that does become a bigger swing, especially if you win a lot of those in a row.
That matters more.
This is what actually bugged me the most.
Yep.
This was fine, but the fact, I don't know if we tied maybe the first 2 rounds
we did.
On majority, but there is not enough inspection control.
Yeah,
that's actually what bugged me the most. That's what was starting to annoy me, where it's like there's nothing that I can do because you can always accurately respond.
Right.
So it's like, well, no matter how I position this, I can't put this in a favorable position because then you can just revert it.
And because the wheels are easily movable, I mean, so we always complain we were out of money. And to a certain extent, that's true. But it's only 2 coins to move the wheel. And so if you move those inspections out of the order that I want, I can move the wheel to fix the problem almost exclusively. And so because I was always second, I could always respond to you.
Right.
And also because with 2 players, like, there's enough of everything that I didn't ever feel starved.
Yeah, no, that's actually a positive of the game, is it feels tight without making you feel like it's tight.
I think with more players, it would feel tighter because you took first player, and I was like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like, you'll take the 4 coins, and I won't get 4 coins. But, okay, I can solve that problem somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so, but what I felt like then it really hurt on the 2 players is because then I could always respond, and I never felt like I needed first player.
Yeah.
Then I could basically stomp out the points, because I will say on turn 2 and 3 is like, man, I am not going to do well in this game. And I was like, yeah, even when we started, I was like, yeah, I don't really even know what the end goal, and this stuff where we move pieces off and
run that's probably the only convoluted spot.
Right. And I was like, I'm going to ignore it, and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And because, first time playing it, I'm going to try and get 90% of the game well understood.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't feel starvy. It feels like if I need something, I have a lot of mitigation. Mm-hmm. I was a little surprised you never got a artisan.
That was a thing in my head that I was like, you know what? I'm going to see how it works out without getting those. And I actually didn't think it was that bad. Nope. Yeah, there was times where I was like, you know, an artisan would be nice right now.
Right.
But I never felt like, oh, you have to do those.
No, you definitely don't. At least in 2 players, you definitely don't have to.
Yeah, no, in 3 for sure, or 3 or 4, because your
spots are
in a 3-player game you have 4 workers. In a 4-player game you have 3.
And I will say,
if I'm not mistaken,
like in this,
you have 3.
I got 2 artisans.
Craftsmen.
I never felt the need to get a 3rd artisan.
Yeah. This is essentially the same as if you played Viticulture, having a Grande worker. But even then, once again, 3 or 4 players, other people are going to get artisans. Meaning, therefore, if I went here with let's say I went here with the craftsman, and then your second player goes here with their artisan, then you now can't go there.
But again, you still can mitigate that a lot by turning the wheel. So unless you need those 3 items in that order, it's still fine.
Which came up quite a bit, where it's like, I need these 3, or at least I need these 2 together.
Right. There's quite a few times with that.
So the fact that but once again, more people are manipulating it. So it's like, if you wanted the 4 clay, and you're like, okay, well, I can put it over here, but then you're going last, then that gets moved, and you're like, I can still go there, and then it gets moved again, and let's say there is an artisan, so now it gets moved, and you're like, well, fuck.
Right.
It got moved in a position that I now actually can't do that.
Oh, yeah, so I think with more players, it's going to get a little more starvy. You're going to get less resources, so we're going to do, I think this is going to stay roughly the same, because you're going to have 3 workers, but everybody's now building, so they're supplying the workers there.
Yeah. A lot more people are vying for the special things, where it's not like, because it's like with the footmen, for example, endgame scoring of majority around, and that allows, I think that makes every single specialist that much more powerful.
Oh, 100%.
Or at least, maybe not more powerful, because they feel powerful in or at least
more relevant.
The musicians felt more powerful in a 2-player game because it's only you and one other person.
Right.
Versus
the footmen felt powerful too, because as soon as you had 4 or had Archer on 3, it was like, I'm not even going to compete for that anymore.
Yeah.
That's why I put 1 there, just to get the 2 points, because I'm not going to get any other points from it, so let's get some contention in it, but not enough that I'm ever going to try to actually compete.
Exactly.
But 3 players, I can see some competition going on.
Yeah, and then it also allows for, because the dominance and presence for the points is, if you have pure actual dominance, then you get the more points. But then everyone else, as long as they got presence, gets the additional points.
Right.
So that allows for a lot more area control. That it's like, okay, me getting the 6 points at the end might not matter, but whoever could be in 2nd or 3rd getting the 6 points, it's like, oh shit, that actually puts them ahead.
Right.
Yeah, that, all that being said, even then, the most annoying thing I found at the 2-player game was the lack of influence.
Yep, agreed.
It made horses, basically useless.
Yeah, horses are definitely... horses to me are kind of situational.
Yeah, because it's just so weird. It counts as the warrior being in all 3 spots, but it doesn't count as 3 warriors being there. So it's only good if you can strategically place them, that no matter what someone does with the influence, you're still going to be included in that.
Right.
But that's kind of where, in a 2-player game, I would never play this again at 2. This would be incredibly...
I would struggle at 2.
Because, the lack of being able to respond... Because normally, which was actually shocking to me, going first was actually worse.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, round 4 or 5 that I was like, I don't want to go first anymore.
Right.
Because getting these weapons is so... This was the tightest part.
Oh, 100%.
I felt, more than money. Yeah, it's like we obviously need money and clay to do the game. But it's like, it's so easy to get those, but it's so like I almost felt like you're burning a turn. You know, when you go to just even flip one of these, it's like, oh, that sucks.
Right, and so you have to go to the weapons master.
Yeah. To then ready them all, and then you're golden.
Right.
For a while. So that's pretty much my main negative, and like I said, it's just rectified. Like, this game shines at
100%.
more players, which I suspected when we were going into the run through, and I was like, we're gonna do it at 2 because these kinds of games are right up our alleys. Yeah. Everyone else that we play these games with, they either don't talk the entire fucking time, so it's horrible for recording, or it's just too much.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I think out of all the T-Series games, this is probably the one I think this might be simpler than Teotihuacan, and I think that one's a pretty simple game.
It's definitely simpler than Teotihuacan.
Definitely more simple than Tekhenu.
Yep.
But it's interesting because this game feels like it pulls a little bit, not like directly, but it's like, this is inspired by this section in this game. And what this reminds me the most of is actually Tekhenu.
Yeah.
With the pillars and and the buildings in that section, but not as autistic. Because Tekhenu has a lot going on with that pillar and the dice, and then you're like, okay, I need to vie for control in 9 areas.
Right.
And here it's just like, nope, you're just building the army, which is brilliant. I love.
It's fun. It's light.
But it's deep. Like,
it's super strategic.
Yeah.
But, like, the building the army is fun, and
you get to see the army at the end.
Yeah, and it looks good.
Cool. I will say it's a little fiddly. Not in terms of, like, placing or anything. That's actually surprisingly good. It's whenever you're doing the scoring, you do about 5 rounds of scoring, and then it's like, okay, did we do that archer? Or did we do that?
Right.
Okay, so, and it sometimes at first glance, this would kind of be a light negative for... Not necessarily for me, but kind of for me. But I can see a lot of people, at first glance, you're not able to see where everyone's at.
Right.
You know, like, you can't sit here and be like, okay, I think I have 3. I have 3, he has 3 there, but I have an archer, so I'm good. Without being able to see, oh shit, they also have an archer.
Right.
Because I remember there was a few times where it's like, okay, we have 3, yeah, I have an archer there, and you're like, oh, so do I, and then you point it, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I feel like that can bog the game down for some people.
So, like, again, if it was my game personally, like, I would probably have painted these bases different colors so it's very easy and fast.
Yeah.
With these type of games, they're not going to paint them, and I understand why. And I love the fact that these are all different colors already. All the warriors are different colors.
Yeah, that is nice.
So I can quickly see by color tones, they're kind of all the similar color, but they are enough different. Like, I mean, so... You have these 4, right? Mm-hmm. And they're different enough. To me, then, paint these interesting colors, you know, green, gold, whatever, so it stands out quick and easy. And then you don't have the problem with the archer, like, okay, who has an archer there?
Mm-hmm. Where are the musicians? Like, I do appreciate that they did different bases. Yep. I think that was kind of their answer, was trying to do that, but it's... And the bases actually make sense.
Yes,
for for what they do.
Yeah.
Orthogonal for the musician. I feel like the knights, they were kind of lazy with it. Oh. They're like they just made the end a little bit wider, but
the archers,
did I say the knights? I meant the archers.
The archers, yeah. I mean, it does show you the direction that they're pointing.
It does, but it's like, yeah. But everything else just still is functional.
Right.
It's just whenever you're trying to decide. When you're vying for control over here, or you're trying to decide which one to buy, and you don't want it, you're like, you have to think about this,
right? As
well as where you want to place. You can't quick glance and be like. So you do have to be like, okay.
You have to you gotta look and math out a little bit. Yeah. So I will say, when we started this game and there was no player aid on the table, I was like, well, shit. And then as we played, I never felt like I needed a player aid.
Nope.
I mean, so one player aid is this box already. It has all of the actions of all.
Thank God.
That's that's a player aid in and of itself. Yeah. Utilizing something you have, so you don't have an extra card.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine this being on the table and someone can't see what they are. Like, so it was very nice that this was just over here and it didn't matter, like, where I had to position this. props to them. Like the miniatures aren't the greatest. They're soft plastic, so they don't fit like as flush in here. But it's serviceable. Like I much rather would have something like this that really, the box has 0 insert, and you just take this and it just fills up the other half.
Right.
And then you just have the rest, and it all fits there, and you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No player aid. You might be like, oh god, it's language independent, so like I have to look at all these icons, and it's like, yeah, they're the most basic of icons.
They all make sense. Like to me, the only one that maybe is the boss for wetting your clay, but even that isn't that hard to realize it.
I also like the fact that even though if you had a bunch of dry clay, there's a couple ways that you can at least, you have enough clay, if you at least do the masters, that you don't have to spend your entire first turn always going and wetting clay. It's like you can at least build something out there.
Right.
So what's also very interesting is you have these end game score or end round scoring objectives that, they're not the most exciting in the world. They're all going to be, you have more in the box obviously, but you're going to have 4 of them for the 4 quadrants.
Right.
Horizontal, vertical, middle lane,
4
and then
for the different
4
warriors.
That's really it. But what's more fascinating is also the fact that it's like you're vying for those, and at a certain point, what I should have started doing was being like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to get the officers. I'm going to start buying these.
So I did that a couple times. Like, so 2 of these guys that I guess maybe 1 of them, I bought literally for the fact that it was 7 points. And I was like, okay, so it's 7 points. I already have the token that's going to reflip, so really it's 10 points at this point.
Yeah.
I'm equal with Seth. I can always react because I'm second player. Again, it's more on the basics that I'm second player.
It's 2 player, yeah.
I think I'm fine. I can go get the extra points now and start whittling back my, this, because at that point I was so far behind. It's like I just need to start scooting up a little bit.
Yeah. And this is kind of one of those games that people can jump in points so quick that this isn't one of those like in other games. Like I would say in the other T series, like I think when we played Tekhenu, that I think there's just a point where you're like, I can't catch up.
Right.
Like I think in our Tekhenu run through. No, we didn't do a run through. We did a review for the expansion. But I think in both those games I happened to win, and that's just one of those where if you're behind, it's like I'm not catching up.
Right.
And this one is the opposite, because you do have control over where you're going to get influence if you play smart. I'm not saying this is bad. I love the fact that you can maneuver the inspection person. And if you're smart about it, that it's like, and you play your cards right. Once again, in a 2-player game, I feel like it's a little easier for the second player to do that. But in a 3 or 4-player game, if you're going last or if you're going in the middle, and you're like, shit, how can I maneuver this? Like, if you were able to like build and then do that, and you were able to like block like these off, like that would be such a sweet move to be like, I'm gonna build an officer. I'm going to move that, and then I'm going to use the officer thing to then maneuver the other one, and no one can touch it.
And I think that's what, when you get to a little higher player count, it's going to have more super satisfying moments. Where this, it was a very enjoyable game. I definitely would play it again, 100%. But in 2 players, I never felt very often like, oh, that was the most satisfying move possible.
Yeah. At least, I never felt like it was cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's because of the simplicity of kind of the game. It's like, okay, I got 4 coins, I got 2 more coins, and then I put a specialist out. Okay. Like, it felt like, not necessarily going through the motions, because I was engaged and I was thinking the whole time, but I never felt like I was strategically actually playing the game.
Right.
Like, showcasing what it can do.
Right.
Because it's, like I said, it's very... not surface level, but it becomes, or it's simple to play, but it has deep layers to it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So, in a higher player count game, that's showcased a lot more.
Right.
And I feel like what could be interesting is that you could theoretically, because, this probably isn't getting maneuvered a lot, or if everyone's jumping on here, then that's almost unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
If everyone's on here in a 4-player game,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, let's move it once, let's move it twice, and then someone else goes, and then they move it, and it's like, oh, God, I don't know where I'm at. So then you're placing, it affects where you're building.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you're placing things in unoptimal positions because you're trying to react.
Yep.
It's like, okay, he's probably going to move it twice because he doesn't want it to be here. So I'm going to build, this archer here.
Yes.
It sucks. It doesn't belong there.
Right.
But if he moves it here, I'm going to definitely have majority. So then they might move it twice, but then they don't move it, and then you have waste, so then you have to move it.
Right. I will say, because we thought it was super powerful, the one master that allowed you to do the inner wheel twice, neither one of us went for it.
No one went for it. And I will say, out of all the masters, I think he's the weakest.
And that's why I thought when we went through the review of what the masters all did, I thought he's the weakest.
He sounds the most impressive.
Right.
Because you get to build twice.
Right.
But you lose out on
points.
You have to take the lowest one.
Yep. And
you can't use your weapons
off
their stuff. So it's literally just, he is the most probably situational, that it's like if it was like this, the spearman and the officer, and it's like, let's just say both of those happen to be the least, but that's not going to be the case because everyone's obviously planning ahead.
Or the situational where basically it's pretty much been locked down that those things aren't going to move. Well, now I really want to get dominant control by I need to put this guy here and I have no clay. Right?
Yeah.
I have coins, but I have no clay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it there to get the 14 points.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's for. It's mainly for, it's also for cock blocking, where it's like, okay, we're tied in this area. Instead of me putting a I think I put a archer up there to take that last spot. It's like, oh, okay, well I can just take one of these and put it there.
Yeah.
But what makes him ass is the fact that, I'd be fine if you didn't get the victory points. I think you should be able to pick what you want to build.
I agree.
I think that would make him way more better, because you're losing out on too much, and you're taking a spot or you're taking a soldier that you probably don't want.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty powerful, and the fact that it gets more expensive makes it like, okay, I'm never going to use him again for round. He's only good for maybe 3 rounds.
That's what I was thinking. I was honestly going to say maybe third round is the last time I'm using it.
I'm not paying 4 fucking coins to get nothing out of it.
Right.
Yeah. So
when you have very limited control on what you can take.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So normally it's like, even if you want to utilize him, you have to hope that the spot's free.
Right.
And then if it's like, okay, well, if I want to use him, I have to pay 2 coins. But that's 2 coins. Then I have to pay 6 or 4 more for 6 money.
And what's interesting to me is, so you pay the one time for everybody else, and then there's no cost for any of the other masters.
Yeah.
But he always has a cost to do his ability.
He always has a cost, yeah.
Which I think that, to me, is where he's the weakest now. Is because...
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Because he always has a cost where everybody else does something pretty solid.
Yeah, that's just like, oh, boom, boom, fucking, that's whatever, 8 clay. I have to go do a wet spot, but... Okay, there we go. Now I'm set. Now who cares where I go? I can do these 2
Or the other
4s.
guy gives you 3, which there's so many spots that are 3 and 2. I mean, there's only 2 spots that are 4s.
Yeah.
No, 3 spots that are 4s. And there's 3 spots that are 3 or less. And so it's like, well, with 3 clay, I can hit 50% of the spots.
Yeah. Yeah, now granted, obviously you can't build... I mean, if you had the 3 clay ahead of time, it breaks even, because then you can go here, build it, and then use that and get your 3 clay back. Right. So it's essentially a free build.
We've already talked about why the Weapon Master's great.
I think he's the best.
Yeah, probably.
Well...
I don't know, the doubling could be very, very good.
Every time he came up, I think every single time we used him, we never had a good bottom spot, because it was always like, oh, let's free all these up, but then the bottom one was the fresh one. Yeah, and it's like, oh, I already did that. Obviously, control more players. This actually probably becomes
less valuable.
Yeah. This one, more players,
probably becomes more valuable.
More valuable, because once again,
it's going to move.
And these basically do the same fucking thing, because it's like, if I want to double build and I got the clay, then I go here and I double build
but
two
the question
officers.
is if you have the clay, because let's say I have medium amount of clay, medium amount of coin, then the top one makes more sense. If I have tons of clay, then definitely the target master guy over there is the way to go.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's like he's the one where if you want to do really exciting turns, you do it again. And it's
right.
Like, I mean, hell, if you go to the one where it's two,
like, or the 4 clay, 4 coin locations. Now I have 8 clay or 8 coins.
Yeah.
I mean, with 8 coins, you were set probably for a round and a half.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Definitely for the rest of that round.
At least if that's your first turn,
yeah.
and then you have 8 clay, then you're guaranteed. You're like, I don't really care what the wheel looks like.
Right.
I have so much money, I'm rich.
Right.
So but also at the same time with this one, you're being able to do a double build, and it's like, you know what? All right, there's 2 down here. I'm just going to double build both of those, and that's 16 points, and I'm going to put it over there. So no matter what you guys fucking do with that influence, I will have at least presence there.
And now that we talk about, like, I should have done it because I was the only one with artisans, and so like doing it on the double, the 2 clay for Terracotta soldier.
Oh yeah.
Should have tried to manipulate the wheel so it was more often around that, and just try to keep popping that off as often as I could.
Yeah. But it became rough because it's like, this is one that if you do your first one,
right,
then it's like, I'm solid.
Right.
Because it's like, and then you just kind of, I feel like it's going to be hard pressed for you to get all 6 out. I almost feel like there should be a bonus if you do.
Right, I agree.
Because it's like, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And we both got 4 out, right? Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where I felt like, it's like, by the time I could have gone more out, I was like, I have so many other things I need to do that they're already decreasing in value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of like another small negative is like 5 out of the 6 ones are definitely just solid, like they're universally good for everyone, and this one is kind of like, I do not find him of value. Now maybe in a 3 or 4 player game, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, if I get him, then I can do this really neat thing.
Right. Or we're just not seeing the strategy for it that somebody's in the comments going to be like, well, if you just do this, then boom.
Right.
Now you rule the game.
Yeah, I mean...
Go for it. Let us know if it is.
Because that's... Yeah, that's true. Because that's also like... there's just too many negatives for doing that. It costs you more money. You don't get points. You can't use their special abilities. So it's like, I just get a body out there.
Right.
No thanks. I think I'll save my... I mean, granted, it did let me win this one, and I think this one. I think I won both of those.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just kind of one of those, the point spread over the course of the game becomes too great that in a 2-player game, this does become, unfortunately, in a 2-player game, whoever wins this wins.
Yes.
This becomes the meta. Whoever wins a majority of the inspection is going to win.
Which I think will drastically change when it's more than 2 players.
Yeah, 100%, because it's more people vying, strategically placing, blocking, that this would alternate. It's not going to go like me, you, you. It could go me, you, third person. Right. And then it's like, oh shoot, no, now we tied. Oh fuck, he placed that, now we tied.
Right.
So I feel like in a 3 and 4 player game, the 7 points is huge if you can get it.
Right.
But a lot of people will probably start taking it.
Right.
Did you find the specialist? So we kind of talked about the balance of these. I think everything else is balanced. I think he's the weakest.
Right.
What about the specialist? I thought they were all good. I think the horse is once again is kind of like in the same situation as this. The horse is very situational.
So I found the horse a little bit different than I think you did. So like, and it didn't work out for me. But like when I placed this horse, I think that was the first horse out.
It was, yeah.
My goal was actually to take up space, and also this was over here, so it's like, well, it has to go up. Mm-hmm. And so now because most of this wasn't even here, it's like I have 3 opportunities to have majority right there. Yeah. And I've taken 3 spots over, and so the chance of one of us being able to, basically whoever has the most in that quadrant, I've eliminated 2 other spots that you couldn't take.
Yep.
And so, again, I think with the 2 players, because there's just enough mitigation to basically kind of move it around to where I liked it, the horse just kind of gave me a little bit more power in it. But yeah, so like this one, because basically we kept it, you bumped it past here, and then I just kept moving it because I had lots in that column. That horse wasn't useful for you.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, when you bumped it up here, it's like, okay, I could bump it up 2, but you still control that entire line because of that horse.
Right.
So I had to move it back down and place the warrior here to get the control back into it.
Yeah.
Because my original plan was, hopefully, was to move it all the way back over here where I had lots of control.
Yeah.
Because realistically, we kind of messed up the map, but I had lots of control up in the north side, and you had lots of control in the south.
Yeah.
And only at the end, because I could react, I started putting more control in the south because of it.
Yeah, and it's not even based off artisans, like...
No.
Because it didn't matter.
Right. The footmen, I felt like, were pretty even at 2 players for power level. The song...
Oh, yeah.
The song players, the musicians, I thought were pretty even.
I almost feel like the footmen, that should be the one thing that doesn't have a presence points. I feel like because if you're placing it there, like, one, like, if someone let, like, yeah, you could play, I don't know.
But here's the thing, because like in the run through the John Gets Games version, I mean, one of his suggestions was you actually don't place them out until you have almost an entire thing around, and then you place it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's a smart way, but then that's other people are letting you do that. Other people are letting you have that hole to plop it in. Funny enough, there was actually a musician that I was going to place. I was going to place it, I think where you place this warrior. Or no, you had a guy. I was going to place him there, and then you put a halberdman. And I'm like, damn it.
Right. And so,
I like the musicians. I like the bards. I think that one's a fun one. That it's both the footmen and the musicians are kind of the same in that when you place them, other people are now more incentivized to go there. So it could be interesting is if I placed a footman way off somewhere,
right? That
it's like, oh, now if you want to capitalize on that, I could draw you away from grouping up here. So then I might actually have a majority, and I feel like. 3-4 player game, that's more likely to happen.
And I think that's more with footmen versus the musicians, because the musicians, I started figuring out, it's like, but it's the whole row and column. So I can still try to keep my majority by doing strategic placements, but as long as I'm in that row and column, I'm gravy. It's just, it's free points.
Yeah. It's just you also give points to your opponents.
Right. But you placed more musicians than I did.
Right.
And I was like, and I got, actually, I think, by the end, more points by musicians than you were getting points by musicians.
I don't fucking remember.
Because I had like almost a solid row for like this musician going all the way across.
Yeah.
And so, again, it did feel like kind of even still. It would be more pressed for with more players. Archers, for me, felt very weird in a 2-player game. Because, again, with 4 of them, it tempered a lot. But basically, it came down to, like, oh, we both have an archer. We both are now tied.
Yeah. And that's the more frustrating part is in a 2-player game, whenever you are scoring and you break even.
Right.
It's just like, okay, well, there's no point in even adding these.
Right.
Like, because it's the same distance.
Yeah.
And because there are only a limited number of 4 of each specialist in a 3- and 4-player game, if anyone gets like a majority, if someone gets like 2 horses or they get 2 kneeling archers, it's like, oh shit, okay, that's a lot more viable than, oh, I got 2, you got 2.
Yeah.
What's also interesting is that this spot is actually kind of useless in a 2-player game because it's only, oh, who's going first. But in a 3- and 4-player game, you have a second one that someone could come grab because it's going to give you a wet clay. And then in a 4-player game, you have the third one, which gives you 2 wet clay.
Right.
And that is after everything dries out.
Right.
So you actually start ahead.
Right.
for going later. And
so super valuable.
Super valuable, where you might actually see if someone wants this and be like, you know, I actually don't want to go first.
Right.
I want to go last. I want to take the third one and get the 2 wet clay. Because I have 5.
Right.
3, and let's just say for you, 3 of them are going to stay wet. Therefore, I will have 5 wet clay starting out. That's pretty huge.
And to me, again, in that 3-player game, I actively will have to choose not to take one of those 2 tokens at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, if I'm last, I'm not getting a reward for it. But I didn't have to spend any of my mill action to go collect them or coins to move it around.
Right.
And so, yeah, you reward the first player who gets it, so they're first and they get the best optimal spot next round. But then the second player gets a clay in the second most optimal.
You take any of them.
Oh, you can take any of them?
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I was like, you don't have to take the first one. Once again, weakens a 2-player game because there's only one, so you could guarantee what position you go in. It's like, ooh, I have my warrior ready. There's some officers left.
Right.
There's only 2. Like, it could be like, well, there's only 2. Are they both gonna buy? No, he doesn't have enough clay to do it, so he can't. Okay, yes, I want to go last.
Right.
And so you take that action, take the third one to get the 2 wet clay and guarantee that you can respond.
You'd be second to last in that case. Because that's only a 4-player game.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
But still, I mean, still pretty low on the totem.
Still, yeah, it's like, okay, but I can still react to what 2 people are doing.
Right.
And get a benefit for it. Yeah, it's just, I'm very curious. I mean, this hasn't been out that long. Yeah, community. Ooh. Okay, not a whole lot of votes, to be fair, but more votes are saying to not recommend this at 2, which I agree.
Right.
Recommended it for best with 3. I see that. I actually do see this being best at 3, because in a 2-player game, also, this doesn't get filled out.
Right.
In a 3-player game, it does.
But in a 4-player game, you only have 3 workers to do all your things.
Yeah.
And so
that would make it feel more tight than I'd probably be more annoyed.
Right.
As if I was like, okay, that's the only move I can do. It's like, this is my last turn. I don't have any money to manipulate it. That's all I can do. And they moved it.
Yeah.
In a 4-player game, it feels like it would be a lot more cutthroat. Because in a 2-player game, when I was like, oh, I could go here, stop you from getting 4 points. I mean, lo and behold, I didn't lose by 4 points.
Right.
Although the point swing isn't as drastic as like other games.
Yeah.
Like, because it was, I think, this was well, maybe like half of this was how far I was in the actual middle of the game.
You were at least 20 points ahead of me.
Yeah, and so it's like that's one win of this and one double win of that.
Right.
To catch up.
Right.
But yeah, in a 3-player game, it's like, okay, I feel like money becomes a lot more important. You're not spending it to turn the wheel as much because if you're going last, you're stuck with what's there.
Right.
So yeah, pretty bad 2-player game. I wouldn't do it again. If this was my only experience, I would be like, yeah, this game sucks.
Right.
But it's definitely way better with more. But I am surprised at a 2-player game how busy that actually was. I thought that was going to be like filled with like 4 soldiers. It's like,
I didn't.
Yeah, nice army
with the 2 goals at the end, because they were at the end. If they were the 2 at the first, this would definitely be a lot less busy.
That's actually another good point. Yeah, depending on the way the game is going to go, it's dependent.
But all of those are goals about this, whether it's quadrant or soldiers or row, column.
Yeah.
So I still think it's still going to be busy because the whole thing is. And I guess, honestly, another credit, the whole goal of the game, realistically, is put these things out.
Is build the Terracotta Army.
Which is the Terracotta Army.
Yep.
So, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think this is a good gateway if you want to introduce someone to board and dice games. Yep. If this is considered in the T series, which it could be, it's Terracotta, I think this is the one I would introduce before, then probably Teotihuacan.
Probably.
And then, depending on how people handled that, it'd be like, all right, go study for the other 2 that I know of. Because I don't think Zulkan is considered in the T series. I
don't know.
I wonder if it's one of those where it was out too early,
Might have
and
been.
then they did all those T games.
Right.
But yeah. One last thing is, did you think the special abilities of the 4 were balanced? Of the 4,
yeah.
I
mean, the Halberder probably was the weakest, but it's also 3 points.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And so that's how I feel like it was balanced.
Yeah, I wish that I would modify a few of these. Well, I would modify pretty much the Halberdman. It's like you get 3 points, but its ability itself is you get to move one of your warriors, any of them, orthogonally until it meets resistance.
Well, you can move it anywhere in that until it meets resistance.
Yes, I would modify it to where you can move it orthogonally, you know, anywhere you want.
But then, yeah, so unless there's a straight line somewhere, that basically
that's what I'm saying. It's like if you, let's say, because it would also make it to where if these are being controlled way more, and it would allow, you know, someone in first who's actually at a detriment to that, where it's like, okay, like let's say you did move it back here, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna do a halberd and use his special ability, and now pop this guy back here. You know.
Yeah.
So then, no matter where he goes, you know, if he, I don't know where my archer went that was on there. Oh, we took him off and put him here.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, oops. Where'd that go? It's like, oh, okay, so now if he wants to manipulate it anymore, then, you know, he can't use his officer again. So if he wants to, he can put it here, but then, you know, it just would allow more consideration of being able to be like, oh, you're gonna move it to where you have control. Okay, now I can pop him back. Right. But the fact that it's like, oh, if it meets a statue, then once again, that becomes useless. Especially in more players where more people can get in your way.
Right.
That it's like, okay, well, I can't even move anything. You know?
Right. But I would argue the archer's the same way. As the board gets filled up, the archer becomes less and less valuable because there's less spaces between players.
True, but at least that one is a leap in points when you use it.
I mean, so it's 0 to 7.
Yeah.
Right? So 7's the best, and that's only going to probably happen at the very beginning of the game. Most of the time, we were good with 2 points.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, is that that's potentially 7 points. I mean, you could even do it in a way where it's like, as long as you put them in a group on the edge, you can get 14, you can get 21.
Well, it has to be somewhere else. So you have to have 1 to somewhere else.
No, I know. But like, if you built over here and I put an archer over there, that's 7 points. Right. I build one over there, I put another archer. So
right. Yeah.
It's diminishing returns as the game goes on, but you leapt so much in points. Like in that 1 7-point swing with 1 archer, you would have to build 3 halberdmen to surpass that, and use it each time to get 9 points.
But the thing is also then by the end of the game, it's still gaining those 3 points when the archers are not, theoretically.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if the math works out perfectly. I mean, I agree that you should have more movement with the halberders.
Hell, even
but being able to go both directions whenever you feel like it, then at some point you basically can just move wherever you like until there's a straight line across the board.
Yeah,
somewhere.
If you keep it until it meets resistance, then I would alter it and say you can move other people's.
That's where I actually would say is you can move other people's. Yeah. That's where I probably would flip it.
Where it's like, okay, fine, it's until it meets resistance. So let's say I build here, and then you move it back, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to build a halberdman, and I'm going to put it, wherever. I'm going to put it over there, but then use this and move yours back.
Right. And then it would have to be like 1 point again.
Yeah, or 2. Like, I still think until it meets resistance isn't as good, and I don't think the 3 points is worth it of wasting. But I'd much rather use this to get a knight out. Not a knight. I keep calling them knights.
Footman.
The footman. You know what I'm saying? It's like every action should be like this. These are so not hard to get.
I wonder if they kind of then balance it with that. So, because the halberder over here is weaker, but this guy is freaking great.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're potentially giving that away, because I thought I had all of them locked down, and I think I won 1, and then we tied 2, and then you won 1, so it ended up being a wash in points. So it's like the fact that it becomes a wash once again in a 2-player game could be more annoying. That I don't know. I felt like the Halberman was definitely the weakest. Like,
yep, I would agree.
Archers are good, 7 points, up to 7 points. With that, you can keep them in a group as well, and then just really position them for a huge leap. Officer, equally as good, gives you influence control. And the Spearman I thought was fine. Yeah. 1 point, 2 coins.
I mean, the Officer was nice because you can move it either direction for the influence.
Forward or back. That would be, if I were to alter another one, probably be the Spearman, make it 2 points. I think 2 points and 2 coins. Pretty solid.
I would have to play a couple more times before I would want to alter the Spearman, I think.
I just don't think... I mean, yeah, pretty much when you're doing that, you're flipping that to basically guarantee that you can manipulate the wheel. If I were to change anything else, it would be that one. I think the Officer and the Archer are good as they are. So yeah, that's kind of like it's like there's always one thing that is kind of as we're talking more, that it's like everything here is good except one. Everything here is good except one, and everything there is good except one. So not that the one is bad, it's just not all things are not created equal.
Right.
That it is what it is. I think the ones though, like this guy, I don't remember his name, the halberdman and the horse, probably out of those 4 are a lot more situational than immediately like, oh, this is rewarding, or yeah, like I have a lot to go with this.
Right.
But with all that being said, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give Terracotta Army? Terracotta Army. At a 2-player game, I'd probably give this like a 4 or 5.
I'm giving it what I think it actually is.
Yeah,
it's a solid 8 in my opinion.
8. I'm there as well. I think I am gonna go with a 7 though.
Okay.
I was originally thinking 8. However, I don't know if this game has the legs as the other ones, because kind of what you mentioned, it is about building the Terracotta Army, but it is just about building the Terracotta Army. So I wonder, as you play this 4 or 5 times, at least in my situation where I'm constantly playing new games, I would definitely come back to this. So I think maybe over the course, because I never jump back to games a lot, that it would still be fresh. But it's kind of like, for me, this is one of those where it's like, when I go out to eat at a restaurant, I don't like just getting one thing.
Sure.
I'm like, man, I'm just getting one thing. Like, can I get fries, or can I get a side or something else, even though the one portion is going to be enough?
Right.
That's what this kind of reminds me of. It's like, yeah, everything you do is about just building the Terracotta Army. Do I really just want to do that, or do I want to do other stuff?
Right. So I understand that. To me, for me, it's such a solid worker placement game.
Yeah. No, it really is.
And for me, that's probably more important. Is the mechanics of the game solid, and then does it feed into its theme? The theme is always secondary for me. And this does both of those things very, very well.
It does, yeah.
And so, for me, I don't get staled on games like that. And I always have a soft spot on worker placement games. That's my bread and butter for a board game anyway. So I could see myself coming back. I would struggle probably coming back at 2 players.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a meta, and it's already been solved.
That is true, yeah.
And
this is, you know what this reminds me of? This is like 2 players Foundations of Rome.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this sucks.
Right.
Like, there's no vying for control. We're always going to get to go where we want. It becomes kind of a dick move just to take that to block you over here.
Right.
But when we played it at 3 with Brett, we're like, oh, this is way better.
Right. And I think the minute we add a 3rd player to this game, it would become way better.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, I think at 3 and 4 this would be an 8. But I still also, it's like how old are these gonna get? You know, where it's like, okay, oh yeah, the middle again. You know, because there's only so much they can do.
Yeah.
I don't see this game getting support. Like, I don't think there's gonna be any expansions they could really do, especially because they built this, so they can't add another soldier.
Right, and I can see that, but because those things are going to, because again you have 4, so 8, so there should be like 10 possibilities.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there's the quadrants, there's the 4 quadrants. Oh, yeah, most money. I forgot we had one that was about clay.
Right.
Having clay.
So 12.
It is, there's 5 there. Yeah, it's the 3 other soldiers, or the 2 other soldiers.
Which 3 other quadrants.
Yeah, so 3, so add another 5, so 10.
Plus the vertical
and the
column
coins,
and
so
the
12.
coins.
Yeah.
12. I mean...
Yeah, once again, and you know what, actually, I am going to bump this up to an 8, because for a board and dice game, this has the depth to it, but this is one that it's like, oh, finally, I don't have to fucking hand you a manual, and then also, like, Tawantin Suyu, that has the best player aid, because if that game did not come with a player aid, I'd probably throw it away. It's so complex that you're like when I was reading the rule book, I was like, because I was playing with Kat and a friend of mine who has played Teotihuacan with, but as I was reading it, I was like, oh no. Like, what the fuck is this? What Stephen Hawking shit did they do with that game? Yet player aid compensated for that. This does not have that. This still had those moments where it's like, how do I want to do this? Like, still had forward planning. It's like, okay, I have 5 actions, which was the best part of a 2-player game. Yes. I have 5 actions. Which, again, it's the best part, but I think the worst part, because you never did really feel that. There's no. You always had an answer. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go there, and then boom, I can do this.
It might have been a suboptimal answer, but it was always an answer.
Yeah. Versus like when you have 4 or 3 workers, you're like, okay, well, there's 2 options left for me, and both of those suck. I only have 2 money? Did I? Yes, I'm gonna spend my 2 money, move this there, and boom, place it, and that's gonna work for whatever. In that example, it wouldn't, but yeah. So yeah, you know what? I will give them props. I will bump it up to an 8. It's a 7.9 on Board Game Geek, but barely anyone's played it. And I don't put my ranking based on what others do. But yeah, I am gonna actually give them a point because none of their other games are as simple. Maybe because it's 2 different designers. I think Adam Kwapinski is...
He sounds familiar.
I think he's Awakened Realms.
Okay, I think you're right. That's why it feels familiar.
Let's see. Adam Kwapinski. Yep, Nemesis.
Okay.
In Between. Oh, that's interesting. That's a 2-player Stranger Things kind of game. Yeah, Lords of Hellas. I'm pretty sure he did... No. He also did Frostpunk. I thought he did Great Wall as well, which would have made...
That's where my mind went to.
Yeah. So yeah, I will bump it up to an 8. I can see this as time went on going to a 7 as you play more and more. But playing it a lot at 3 and 4, it could be like, oh shit, nope, this is definitely an 8.
It could be cutthroat enough that it would still work potentially.
Yeah. All right, you got anything else?
Nope.
Okay, so that's our thoughts on Terracotta Army. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.